Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Gwyn, and the Insider crew.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 114. We are at PCA's national headquarters. Around the table, we have Manny, Damon, Lowney, and at the controls, we have Robert Forsyth. And today, we have a very special guest, past region president of the Potomac region, now on the national level as National Drivers Education Chair. Welcome, Mia Walsh.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
Now you get to experience the new reality of Maryland, Baltimore traffic since the bridge went down.
You had Manny's commute today.
I feel so sorry for Manny.
Yeah,
and Melody, both of us.
Yes,
yeah. I live close enough to the tunnel where it doesn't matter too much.
So you just come off the track, actually. You were at
Virginia International Raceway.
VIR,
Yep.
one of my favorite tracks.
This past weekend with the Potomac region, we had about 180 drivers there, full paddock. Great weather, perfect weather. Absolutely stunning event.
Nice.
It was amazing.
There you go. We told me about the bell, so first usage there. Now, we recently did a podcast on why autocrossing can help you as a driver. And I think this is a natural kind of next step conversation is going into driver's education.
Absolutely.
So maybe we'll take our listeners into a better understanding of what the difference is.
The difference between autocross and driver's education.
Yep.
So autocross is done mostly on a parking lot pavement, going in and out of cones, very short time period, 2 minutes or so. High performance driver education's done at larger racetracks, 2 to 1.5 to 2.5, 3 mile long racetracks. You are out there with many cars at the same time, whereas autocross, you're just out there by yourself, or halfway through the track, you'll have another driver start. And for the people that are just starting out in high-performance driver education, PCA puts an instructor in the right-hand seat with them so they get to learn everything about their vehicle dynamics, the track, entry apex, and all of the things that go along with that.
What I love about driver's education is that they, especially with PCA, is you can be a brand new novice driver. Even if you haven't done autocross at all, you could sign up to do a HPDE and get paired with an instructor and get started in your driving career, so to speak. Or you could be signed off instructor, almost amateur driver, and we're all the same weekend. I mean, and it's quite amazing how many people.
Here with the three of us, Damon, have you ever done like a PCA driver's ed? I know you've done track work, but
long time ago. I've only done like 4 or 5 track days in my life,
okay.
And my first one was Streets of Willow.
Yep,
in Southern California. I had my 944 S2, and it was a track weekend, which it was an HPDE, but in SoCal they like their time trials, so they ended it with a time trial.
They do, yes.
And it was a lot of fun. The one thing I should say, I'm sure we'll get to this, is that make sure your brake fluid is new and your brakes are good. Even if you think you're good, just flush it out. I speak from experience.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's also important to let folks know that HPDE is not racing.
It is a non-competitive
event.
event.
It's a non-competitive event.
That is absolutely true.
Manny, when did you start D'ing?
I joined the club in '89, and I started autocrossing the second day I joined the club. And I did autocrossing all the way. I still do autocrossing, but it wasn't until '96 that I tried driver's ed. Up until then, I was scared of it because I had visions of, this is before the internet, so there was no pictures or anything, but my head vision, I hear racetrack and Porsches, and I thought of NASCAR. And I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to wreck my pretty car on a racetrack. And so I stayed away from, I heard of driver's ed. I would see the Potomac newsletter come out and see pictures, but I'm like, no way I'm taking my car. And it wasn't until the chief instructor at the time, Bob Williams, who was also a pretty avid autocrosser, would always tell us at autocrossing, you guys got to come out to the track. And we'd be like, that's a little bit too high risk for us. And he's like, no, it's a great learning experience. It's really safe. So finally, when the president of Chesapeake, Paul Gilbreth, he convinced us. He said, I'll hold your guys' hands. We'll go. We'll register. And I remember, I think he canceled out of the first event we went to. So we had already signed up for it. And it was a March. It was a March event at Summit Point. It was literally snowing.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And they told me to get, at the time, BF Goodrich R1 tires. And so I've never been on the track, never been to Summit Point, and they told me get them shaved.
Oh.
No one gets full tread.
Oh, wow.
So I'm basically slicks going out there with the grip
In the
of
snow.
death, because people in my group even knows, and I know they put me in a blue group because Bob said, "Oh, you have so much autocross experience. I'm just going to put you in the blue group." So everyone out there knows the line, knows what's left and right. I have no clue. It was a heck of a learning experience, but I got hooked big time on it. And the first time you pass the car, it is the biggest rush on the racetrack, even though it's all controlled passing. And 500 track days later, I kind of like slowed it down, but I went full bar. I think I did. I was keeping track. I think I had 32 tracks I had driven. I had almost 90 club races. I just went full bore. And I always say, if it wasn't for the Porsche Club of America, I would have never driven these tracks that I read about. Used to go watch races like Daytona, Watkins Glen. It was a great experience. But above and beyond that was the camaraderie. Incredible camaraderie, because if you ever break, everyone comes around like little ants, willing to help you out and see what you need, see if they have parts. It's a very tight-knit community.
Yeah, for me it was like you getting into autocross the second day. I had autocrossed in college, so as soon as I got my car, I signed up for an HPDE. And at the time, I live in Chesapeake region, but back in 2000 and this would have been 2003, the closest region that had a lot of track time was the Potomac region.
Right. Yeah.
So I immediately signed up for Summit Point. I signed up for Mid Ohio. I signed up for VIR, Watkins Glen. I mean, I was
Great
doing
tracks, all of those.
I was doing 12 track days, so like 6 weekends, which I don't get anywhere near
I was gonna
that.
say, we
I don't
never see you out there, Boo.
That was fun, Boo. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
That was fun, Boo.
We want fun
There's a
back.
video showing of
look at
my
that.
first
Look at that.
time to
Wow.
VIR with Manny, where I
Yep,
drove
that's
my
VIR.
car down and he was trailering, and it like you said, Manny, it was, for me, going to the track is really more about the camaraderie. Like, I do enjoy the driving and it's fun, but I really love being around the people. And you really don't understand the limits or the capabilities of your car until you take it to the track. You get some of it at the autocross, which you can appreciate. But at the track, when, as Manny said, you pass someone for the first time, especially, I was a car mid-pack 3.2 911, and if you're reeling in someone that that has more horsepower,
Right, yeah.
that should be a faster car, like, that is so rewarding. But you do appreciate things much more about the car. It isn't just about the 210 horsepower that I have. It's the turbo brakes that I have. It's the turbo suspension that I have. I didn't have the ideal car, but it's what I had. I had my car's a M491 turbo look car, and I got the car. I took the seats out. The other thing is,
Was there something wrong with your engine in this video?
this is 2007, wheeling with 210 horsepower.
Let
That's
Boo
a lot of
live
I know,
his
right?
glory, please.
Those were the glory days.
But it's just
We
ask
have not
Damon
had
if-
these days.
ask Damon if his car's running. Just leave
Yeah.
it.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
I can literally take my car to the track tomorrow. Can you do that?
Yeah,
Well,
my face is getting all red now.
yeah, it is, actually.
You know it's an old film because the oak tree's there.
The oak tree's there,
Yeah.
and I
Oh,
think
that's
I'm using
sad.
a
Yeah.
camcorder with a tape. Like, I had to convert this from a
mini
tape.
DV?
Yeah. And
Gang,
I
things
was
have
noticing-
changed a little bit.
So if you're
since
watching on
then.
YouTube, you're seeing some historic footage.
this is. But you see, chasing me is a GT3, so I was.
I don't know if
it
he's
was a
really
lot of
chasing
fun.
you. I think he's waiting for the pass.
So pixelated, we don't have to blur the license plates.
That is true. It's so pixelated you can't see the license plates.
There you go.
Absolutely. Yeah, but one of the things that I found out about my car, when you go to a DE, you always have to get your car inspected.
Right.
And when I bought my car, it looked like everything that it should be. But when I went to a tech inspection, one of the the Potomac techs are like, hey, you might want to get wheels for this car before you take it out on track. Yeah, I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, a M491 Turbo Look comes with 16x7 and 16x9 Fuchs, which my car had, or so I thought. But during the inspection, and this is how cool when you go to these people that know what they're doing, and it was like a group thing, and the Potomac region tech person, they're like, those rears of yours, they're 16x9, yes, but they're actually cast wheels, and they're not the original forged wheels. I had no idea because they look exactly
Fake Fuchs.
I was
They
gonna
were
say,
fake
Fuchs.
that's not the issue. You had fake
I
wheels.
had fake Fuchs, so the person
Replicas.
somehow I ended up with fake Fuchs. I didn't know about it, and that's why I actually have 17 by 8s and 17 by 10 Fuchs that are made by a company where they fit the 16 by 6 centers with the BBS barrels, because at the time finding 16 by 9 real Fuchs was almost the cost of getting these custom made 17-inch Fuchs, which gave me more tire choices.
So moving into 2024, gentlemen, you can
Exactly.
buy a car and bring it right to the track.
Exactly how times have changed.
How times have
I should have
changed.
mentioned my track day was 07, my first one. So
Oh, really?
I didn't say that. It was quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
That was mine too. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
So let's talk about the types of cars that are allowed in driver's ed. Obviously, Porsche sports cars, but maybe the breadth of DE.
So that changes depending on what region you are in and what track you are in, because some tracks do not allow SUVs. So a Macan and a Cayenne would not be permitted. Some do. Some regions don't permit that. Most regions will allow other marques to attend their DE events depending on which event it is. So at this last event that I went to this past weekend, there was a VW, there were Mazdas, there were, a lot of, Audis. There were some Audis there. A lot of BMWs were there, and a lot of Porsches. So it really depends on the region and the track.
What's the deal with electric cars? Because I know Manny drove one on track in Europe.
Yep.
But I've heard some things here in the U.S.
So, like Summit Point Motorsports Park does not allow them on track at all, not even for parade laps,
But yet they have chargers at the track.
because they switched. So that actually came probably from us. We provided a list of questions to see if your track ready for electric vehicles. And we gave them a list of questions on their emergency procedures. What if there's a battery fire? What kind of training have your EV people had? And they were like, ooh, maybe we need to think about this a little more. Because I went to a Porsche experience at Summit and drove the Taycan around the Jefferson track, and then they did switch. But there are some tracks that don't allow them, and some tracks that do.
I know Atlanta Motorsports Park they have gone all in for electric cars.
Right.
They're really heavy and
cool.
chargers, and they have a race series or something. They're really innovative when it comes to electric cars.
Yeah,
Super
so
cool.
it really depends.
Depends on the track.
But PCA on a national level, we do not. We allow. We allow
leave
them.
it to the track, I guess.
We
right?
leave it to the region and to the track.
More personal to me with my car, when I got my car, I think at the time at Summit, I didn't have to have a bar because my car is a convertible at the time. But VIR had always required one. So I
Yeah.
got a DAS roll bar and put it in. And maybe you can explain what's the requirements for convertibles now.
That's a very it's a large list there. Bottom line is, there's the broomstick rule. So with your helmet on, does that broomstick fall under the factory roll bar that's there? There's built-in factory roll bars that count there, and it can. There's a whole chart of which models it applies to, what brands it applies to, and again, what tracks. Because,
What tracks require.
Yeah, what tracks require. That's all. And I know that Robert has our minimum standards, and it kind of talks a lot about that and the minimum standards as well. And we did a Tech Tactics live about 2 years ago, and we did go through really nitty gritty on all of the minimum standard details on it. So
this is something we should probably, if you're thinking of going to do a track day each year, you should probably check those minimum standards or the rules locally because they change.
If you have a convertible.
If you have a convertible,
because it varies by track too. Some tracks allow it. Some tracks, I guess VIR still requires rollover protection.
Absolutely.
But not the kind that pops out. It has to be fixed, I guess is that the terminology?
So, for instance, I got a call from a Canada region, and they said that the spiders in the factory says we don't recommend driving the spider 150 miles per hour over with the top up. And so, they said, well, what's the deal with that? Well, if the track allows the top to be down, they have to have arm restraints.
Right.
So you have to have restraints so that your arms don't fly out of the car as well.
But then you need a harness to put the restraints onto, right?
It has to be attached into the car somewhere.
Yeah.
So then the person who was asking the questions like, oh, I don't know if they're going to want to attach these
Sure.
arm restraints into their new Spider. So, it's definitely, I would recommend that anybody that's interested first check with the region that they're going to be driving with to see what the region's requirements are. And that region should be able to tell them whatever track they're driving, what those requirements are as well.
I remember when the 987 Spider first came out, that when I was on the driver's ed committee for National, that threw us for a loop because I think it was like 100 miles an hour for the 987. And so we finally got a hold of somebody in Germany and said, what happens at 101 miles an hour?
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, I don't know. Well, like, well, how'd you come to that number? They were like, we thought that was a safe number.
But no one's ever going to drive that speed.
Yeah, right?
Right.
Well, you can definitely hit 150 miles an hour on the back straight at VIR. So
So they have to run with the top up. Unless they're going to put the arm restraints.
Unless they put the arm restraints in. Yeah, you have to have those arm restraints in if your top's down.
But that's really like a Targa, especially a modern Targa. You just run with the top up, and it's
Right.
pretty much like
you
a
can
coupe,
run,
right?
put your hard top
Yeah.
on.
It's a cabriolets. I think that you got to check, like Devin Stevens said, check ahead of time which track you're going to. Because even though the region may allow it, it's a track that will overrule. Because if they say no, we're not allowing that, then
The track wins.
Yeah,
The track
exactly.
wins whatever
It's
their
their
rules
playground.
are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
How has the climate or environment changed in DEs I would say in the last decade with the cars that are quite competitive? Well, maybe competitive is not the word, but capable.
Capable is a great word.
And the power and such.
So I would say not only are the cars different, but the drivers that are coming in are different. And so Manny was talking about he had no idea if he was turning left or right. Well, we get
oh, I'll put that in context.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, that's pretty.
You are
Spot on.
absolutely correct, Mia. Absolutely correct.
sorry.
There's
Manny.
no drug testing back then.
Yeah, right. You've got drivers that are coming in, never been on track before, but they've got their sim machines. They've got YouTube.
Yep.
They've got coaches who, like Ross Bentley, Dion Von Mulkey, all these people that are posting turn-to-turn coaching on how to get around a track. Of course, you have the track map, and my favorite students are the ones that come with the track map with their little notes on every single one, and they can get out and they know where they're going.
Right.
Completely different than it was even 6 or 7 years ago. Cars, obviously, I talked about, you can pick one up and bring it to the racetrack. They've got capable brakes. They've got capable tires. They certainly have the power, and they have, all of the systems with the vehicle that will keep you on track. I was talking to Manny a little earlier. A few of the newer things that get a little messy on the racetrack are, they have auto emergency braking. Okay,
right.
so we in our drivers' meetings now have to tell them, you have to turn off your auto emergency braking. Well, I don't have that. Yeah, in these new cars, yes, you do.
Oh.
And you have to turn it off and on every time you start and stop the engine. So what's going to happen there is, let's say you're going down the front straight, the car sees somebody braking in front of you. It brakes automatically thinking that you're going to hit something. And you're not ready to even start braking until like the 5 mark or the 4 marker.
Right.
So somebody behind you is not expecting that brake to happen. and it could get a little spooky there.
Oh.
Auto lane change, emergency auto lane change, same deal. And one of the other things with the Apple iWatches and the Apple phones has something called crash detection.
Like the G-force meter.
It's a G-force meter. So we have to instruct the drivers to turn that off because with all of the G-forces rolling around a racetrack, it thinks that you've been in some kind of, topsy-turvy, and it calls the emergency police.
That's awesome.
And they still arrive to the racetrack. That happens at ski resorts a lot too when people are pounding down the moguls. Their watches recognizing some G-force, and then they get down at the bottom of the mountain, and there's a whole emergency team there waiting for them.
So I guess not instructors, because I was an instructor for a while. I would have to look over to make sure that all this stuff is turned off.
Yeah,
Because sometimes the student is overwhelmed,
completely
especially
overwhelmed.
if it's a newer one, and so you're there to make sure that to help them along with reminding, because that emergency or the automatic braking could really. I'm thinking in my head, if I was still doing this, what a better way to mess with people. Yeah. It's just to left foot brake a little bit, not slow the car down, but to put the lights on and get the people to over brake when you're accelerating, really.
Mischievous Manny. So what's the average car, let's say, that's at a DE? Now Porsche, because towards the tail end of
Let me guess
my
first.
time
Go ahead.
at
Go
DEs,
ahead, go ahead.
there's a lot of GT3s, right? There's some fast cars out there, and I felt like, not because of my driving, it was because of my car, that I was really a speed bump for everybody, because there's some serious hardware.
I'm gonna guess 986 Boxster
I'm
No,
gonna say
no.
turbo.
because
No.
996 or 997.
I'm going to say
turbo.
997 and newer.
I'm going to say a lot of mid-engines are out there now. Caymans and
I was
GT4s.
I thought
Cayman
mid-engine.
GT4s.
I was gonna say Cayman, maybe not because Boxsters are cheaper, but you have to do a lot to make a Boxster trackable, I guess, compared to a Cayman.
There aren't a lot of Boxsters in
Yeah.
DE. There are a lot of Boxsters in racing.
in racing
Yeah.
because it's a
Spec class.
and it's a lower entry point.
So I was almost there, but it's 987 and up. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Huh?
Caymans.
Yeah.
That's what you drive.
That is one of the cars
You
that
know
I
why?
drive
Yeah,
for
'cause
sure.
It's the best car.
That's a great car. I mean, I'm in love with my Cayman.
It is for driver's ed because it's before the Cayman came out, we only had the Boxster, and you had the issue we just talked about with the convertibles, and at the time it was the brake cross extension, all this stuff to get it to pass. And then sometimes we mandated a hard top, but now the Cayman was perfectly set up for most people that buy Caymans, I think, are enthusiasts as far in a sense of performance. They don't want open air; they want a coupe to be as rigid
Solid
as possible.
chassis, yeah.
exactly. So,
And
that
a lot of
makes sense.
GT3s.
A lot of
you were right.
GT3s,
There are a lot,
yeah.
a lot of GT3s are out there.
Well, that's good for all the people. They say GT3s just sit in people's garages and never
No.
use them. Yeah, I've seen at the track. You just come out and you quickly see. I remember a lot of turbos too. There, because that's an awesome track weapon.
My student this past weekend had a 4S, and that car is fun on the racetrack.
Yeah.
Super fun.
Especially when it rains.
Yeah, right? Thankfully, we had perfect weather.
Yeah.
So,
When someone's going to the track for HPDE, and let's just say it's their first or second time, do they need to do anything to their car other than just showing up, making sure they have the helmet and the safety requirements done, or do they need to modify things and do things to make their car work on track? Can they just show up in a Porsche?
they have to get the car inspected.
Mm-hmm.
There's a formal tech inspection process before they get to the racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
And what you had mentioned before, we really look closely at the brake pads, when their fluid has been changed, etc. But they could come straight out.
Yeah. So you don't need to put bigger brakes on, more cooling, this or that.
Not
you can just show up and
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
It's
Yeah, there's
very minimal. It's a helmet, and there you go. I always tell people don't modify your car until you find out what your car can do.
right,
And
exactly.
then you decide. Bob Williams, our old chief instructor, he was notorious for telling people that everyone who made all these modifications then came out to the track and didn't know why their car handled terribly. And he
Right.
said, "What's the last thing you did?" And he would list a whole laundry list of stuff they changed. He goes, "We got to take everything off, and you got to go back
Start
to the beginning
over.
and figure out what it was that made your car go downhill and handling wise." So yeah, it's tough to convince people because they want to modify right away. But yeah, go out there, get a baseline, and learn to drive, and then you can determine what you need to do to your car.
So my student, she's got about, I think, 25, 30 days on track. And the first mod that she did was to get her some bolster seats.
Okay, yeah. So seats are always good.
So you're not fighting.
Yeah, so you're not
keeping yourself-
fighting. You're not sliding around in the car. And then I think next, a lot of people then talk about harness systems keeping you tight. So
Right.
So not even performance, just safety modifications.
Safety. I mean, and that's what I did with my Cayman. My first things were all safety related.
Yeah. And a seat is a performance modification anyway, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Depending on what you get.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. And I didn't realize how much I missed it until I took my street 964 to the track, and I was like, oh my god, every
Sliding.
turn. Exactly, I was bracing myself now, where before I was just steering and didn't think anything about my body moving because it was being held tight by my fat and my seat. And this time I had a seat with no support, and I was sliding all around.
The Jello mold doesn't.
Fit very well.
Yeah, not sliding in your seat is really a nice thing
It's
to
very
do.
confidence inspiring. That is my cars. They're gonna laugh. My cars are fairly stock, but one of the first things that I do is I always have a proper seat because I feel like if you're not fighting, you're more focused. It's you're more comfortable. Yeah.
And as an instructor, you feel better at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If you're not holding on, trying to use your legs to support
Yeah.
you, not flying around the
Yeah,
track.
with safety items and that's what they told me back then, and that's what I did. I got a roll bar, harness, race seats, and that got my fix of modifications. But I held on. I still had the stock suspension and brakes and everything, and I'm glad I did because I built up to that stuff. I didn't throw everything at once and then wonder why the car wasn't handling well.
I also love the opportunity at many of the DEs as a participant. Of course, you're assigned an instructor if you need one, but you get to go out with your instructor. And my instructor drove a 3.2 Carrera as well, and his was truly stock. I think he had tires, stickier tires. But to see what he could do with that car, knowing that his car was very similar to mine, it was humbling and incredible all at the same time because, he's not braking. He finally, hit the brake so much harder than I ever
Right.
did, and making the car dance around. And his car is like, so have you done anything? Because I was thinking, oh, he must have He's like, nope,
Nope.
just tires.
That's the best question
Yeah.
for any driver to
Yeah.
receive
Right.
that question
Yeah.
and then be
What
able
have
to
you done to
tell
your
them,
car?
nope, nothing.
Just
that
tires.
threshold
Yeah.
braking
Or how much
is
power are you making?
really hard for
Yeah.
a new driver to understand until you actually put them in that situation because it's counterintuitive to anything that they're doing on the road. And really feeling that strap holding you in as you're pounding the brake and entering that hard braking zone. That's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's
why
what
I-
you kind of chase after. You
Right.
keep chasing after to be as good as someone.
Breaking point is probably the toughest thing to get right. For me, at least, that's what I'm still trying to break later and later, to eke that time out in an autocross, at least.
When people ask about
You
modifying
breaking an autocross?
lift. When people ask about modifying a car, it sounds like a broken record. I always say, go to a school and learn how to drive it. Your car has plenty of horsepower. Even if it's an SC, it still has a ton of horsepower. You just have to learn how to drive it, and a lot of people don't understand that. But driving on the track will make your car faster. You'll realize about braking, driving understanding when the car talks to you, steering with the throttle, all this stuff that when you go around the twisties, it's going to be so much more enjoyable and give you such a high level of confidence. I went to the track. One of the reasons I went to the track was because I heard all these nightmare stories about rear engine 911s being so hard to drive and the tail's going to come out and bite you. And so I thought, well, if I can really learn how to drive this, then I understood it and I learned how to drive it, and I realized what an advantage a rear engine car has on the track if you can learn how to control it, which wasn't hard to do at all. But yeah, that's why I recommend driver's ed so heavily to people who are looking to get more horsepower out of their car. And I tell them, go to the track and learn how to drive it.
And that's a good point, that we're not only teaching them on the track, the classroom sessions are a really important piece of helping them understand the friction circle and the vehicle dynamics and understeer and oversteer. And they're doing it in a classroom where they can talk about it and not have to worry about what's going on at 150 miles an hour.
They're not just putting you out there and letting you figure it out with an instructor. And those classroom and such, I think it was it Miriam Wolf? Gray Wolf? Gray Wolf was her car.
License plate, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember she had this steering wheel with the string tied to the bottom in her foot.
Right.
And as she turned the wheel and your foot, it's a choreographed. There's etiquette as well that you're learning about. Maybe talk a little bit about that, the smoothness, and also you're not just going out and passing willy-nilly. There is an etiquette on track in HPDE.
So the etiquette first is a passing etiquette, because you could be out with someone who has 10 more track days than you, but you're still in the same run group. So people might get a little worried that they're out there with race cars all the time. So there are many different run groups, and those are separated by the experience level of each person. So if you're a newbie coming in, you're going to be with the newer drivers. And passing etiquette, you have several zones within a racetrack where you're allowed to pass, and you are able to give a pass if a car has come up quickly behind you. So there's only in the safer areas on a racetrack when you're a novice driver. And that's a contract that you make between you, the driver, and the person to whom you're giving the pass. It is a well-orchestrated dance. You let them by, you fall back in behind them, and it's a really safe, controlled environment. The flagging stations are another thing. You communicate with anyone on the track. There's flagging stations, manned or not manned. A lot of the newer tracks are putting electronic flagging out there, so we talk a lot about that as well. But the colors of the flags give you a warning that something's on the track. You might have something, a gopher that's gone across the track. You might have a tow truck, a slow-moving vehicle. And so part of the process of teaching newer drivers is, what do all the flags mean, and what do you do when you see one of those flags?
And something may be wrong with your car. You may be smoking and not realize it, or dropping fluid that a corner worker sees when you go by. You're clueless, because it's a lot to take in, looking at gauges and everything, so they can save your car. That's why I think the term was at the end, that when you did the cool-down lap and you waved to the corner workers, there was no wave, no save, meaning you want to wave and be nice to the people that could possibly save your life and your car.
Right. So we rewrote the National Instructor Training Curriculum last year, and we implemented this year, because the cars and the people who are driving them are very different than they were 20 years ago. So we had to bring in a lot new concepts about learning styles, whether they're a tactile learner, whether they're a visual learner, whether they're an auditory learner. And when I'm training new instructors, I have about, I think, 21 or 22 national instructor training schools this year. I tell the instructor, I said, you are an instructor, you are a psychologist, you are a cheerleader, you are a life coach, you are a coach, you are a mechanic, you are all of these things, and a friend to the person that you're helping. And it's a lot of responsibility, but you have to be all of these things when you're getting in the right-hand seat. And I think a really important thing is PCA's High Performance Driver Education Program is run completely by volunteers. These instructors are not getting paid to sit in a car with you.
I was just going to ask, how much are they getting paid
Yeah.
for all that, right?
Sometimes a free lunch, I remember.
Usually it's
Yeah,
a meal
free lunch.
ticket at Shea Summit.
Yeah,
right?
well, the meal ticket at BIR was $25 this
Oh.
weekend.
Well,
they got
Their
good food,
prices
though.
have gone out. They do
Wow.
have good food, but so yeah, they're getting a free lunch, and the reason that the instructors do it is because 8 years ago, 9 years ago, when they started driving, they had somebody in the right-hand seat that taught them everything that they need to know to be a successful driver, and they want to give back.
Absolutely.
And so that's a really amazing thing.
There you go.
There we
I
go.
was
Man,
trying
you're
not
good on
to
that.
say that. Oh my gosh. Sorry. That is a well-round theme in PCA. No matter where you go, if you're in a high-performance driving event, everyone there is out there to help you, and everybody there is a volunteer. And we do it to give back to those who served us beforehand and made us the great drivers that we are today.
And I think that in most regions, you have the same instructor the whole event, whole weekend.
Correct.
Because I remember going to other schools that weren't PCA and finding out that instructors were lined up, and they would just go down the paddock and hop in a car. So the advantage of having the same instructor is you're working on your development every session. I remember I would tell my student, okay, relax, we're going to go back out in 2 hours. Next time we go out, we're going to work on turn 1, we're going to work on this turn, and we're going to work on your braking. That's the 3 things we're going to work on, and just remember what you did and blah, blah, blah. But by the end of the weekend, they had progressed and saw how much they had improved. And I thought, boy, if I had a different student every session, that wouldn't happen.
Right.
Because as an instructor, you're getting to learn the student, what they're doing. So, PCA is very organized when it comes in that aspect. And a lot of times when they're assigning instructors to students, you know some of the instructors are very good with beginner students. Mm-hmm. And so you assign them to beginner, where other ones are better with advanced students. And so you it's not something random that they're putting in the spreadsheet and just.
And I know they've chosen some instructors if they had similar cars to you, like cars,
mm-hmm.
right?
Exactly.
Perfect.
Right.
They understand what you're feeling or you're going through because they also have a Cayman or they also have a.
When I was a registrar for a while too for Zone 2, and I would always get the. Can you assign me the fastest driver instructor?
Yeah,
the fastest one. And I would always say, I said, being the fastest doesn't mean you're the best teacher. There's plenty of baseball players that were phenomenal baseball players, but turned out to be terrible managers. Mm-hmm. So you don't want the fastest driver. You want the best teacher, someone who's going to teach you, because otherwise, all you're going to see is somebody driving fast, but you're not going to learn what they're doing. It's so if your instructor is not all that impressive on the track, don't discount that, because he or she may be phenomenal in teaching and conveying the basics to you and teaching you how to drive faster.
Yeah, I've never met an instructor I didn't love, because I know that they're volunteering their time to sit in my car. They don't know how I drive.
Right.
And they are,
Your name always had a red circle next
did
to it.
it when I registered?
Confidential notes.
Yes, exactly. Instructor notes. Pass it on to the next one.
Keeps calling car stock.
The other thing that PCA's HPD program is known for is the number of dates they have at all the tracks around the country.
It's crazy.
One of the by far largest benefits of being a PCA member is that program and where it takes you.
Right. So I think out of 146 regions we have
47.
47.
Yeah.
87 or 88 whole DEs.
Wow, that's incredible.
And Potomac, for example, which is my home region, we have 13 in 1 year. So that's on the very high end. There's only maybe 5 or 6 of us that have that many in a season. But I actually don't know the total number, but it's probably in the 200 plus range of track events a year.
If you go to events under the PCA.org website, it is just filled with driver's ed events.
But not every region puts their events up.
Yeah, I was going to
there.
say, go to the regional
no,
websites too.
but just ones that do, it's still an impressive list.
It is an impressive
What
list.
I like is, like I said earlier, you don't have to stick to your region. You can go and visit a bunch of different tracks that you've always wanted to drive, that you read about, from the East Coast to the West Coast. And to me, and still have essentially like the McDonald's feel, if you will. It's going to be to run the same. They may have some minute differences, but overall,
Class colors might be a little bit different. Right?
Well,
I run in green. Is that solo or is that?
I had to do, when I took over this, when people were talking about purple and pink, I have no idea what run group you are. I had to do a chart. I go, everybody has to put their colors in there so I can speak your language. But especially these iconic tracks, Mo Sport, Watkins Glen, Mid-Ohio. We've got people from everywhere. At VIR this past weekend, we had a contingency from Vermont. We had Wisconsin. We had Texas, St. Louis. All people from all over came to drive that track. And so how that works, so, you are ranked in your qualifications and skill sets. Sometimes your region's chief instructor might have to contact the hosting region's chief instructor to validate your driving credentials or your instructor credentials. And the chief instructors are that's a very common part of what their role is. So A lot of the events sell out pretty quickly, so you do have to keep your eye on when the registrations are opening. Some regions open them at like midnight, and you have to set your alarm
I
and get
remember
in
that.
there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think I was in MSR Houston last weekend, and 2 weekends ago, and they were talking about how they used to have to mail in their registrations, and it had to be a specific postmark
Poststamp,
time,
yeah.
and that the person, mine must have been lost in the mail, that kind of thing. So times have changed a little bit.
That's when you know you're old, because I remember sending it to Marilyn Hickson, who used to be the registrar for Potomac, and at midnight or early in the morning before the mail came to pick up the post office box or empty the post office box, you would make sure you had that stamp, so you had a fighting chance to get into an event, because Mid-Ohio would sell out
Exactly
that same day, and and you had to wait until it came back in the mail whether or not you got accepted. The old days.
The old days.
One of the reasons I love driving with PCA is I found out that not all driving events are organized the same. And what I'm getting at is, you talked a little bit about minimum standards and guidelines, instructors, training, the etiquette, so to speak, on track. There's a lot of track events available out there that I wouldn't say are unorganized, but they run a very loose program. And I've done one or two of those, and I was worried I was not coming home with my car with the nice shiny finish that I started the event with.
Right. There are a lot of different organizations out there that could be just a guy who bought the track time and wanted open track time for people. I mean, there are some ones that are certainly qualified to do that, both for profit and other clubs as well that are, run by nonprofits. But that is the great thing about PCA, is that that there are strict guidelines of safety adherence, and that there are strict training of the instructors, so they are well qualified to communicate with you. It's very difficult in a car to speak ahead of somebody going, again, 130 miles an hour, whatever it is. So it is a skilled, learned practice, and that they have to go through a training program, a lot of mentor sessions out on track, just so that they can keep their driver safe.
I went to a driving program. It was literally arrive and drive.
Right.
They put you out there, didn't even ask kind of what level driver I was, nor was there an instructor. And the bad part about that is, you can, if you drive slow enough, you can get yourself around the track, granted. But as you go faster and faster, if you're not doing it right, you don't know that you're doing it right.
Right. The training is huge.
The training is huge.
Huge part of it. Yeah. And the progress, as Manny said, from day 1 to day 3, the skills that they've developed and their progress, not only in speed but capabilities and smoothness, it's amazing, and that's the absolute joy.
There we go. Man, you said it more than Vu.
Effervescent. I'm going to have to think of some better adjectives.
I'm going to have to put amazing in the title.
The amazing interview with Mia Walsh.
2 or 3, I can't remember, but. The joy is the high five on Sunday.
Yeah.
And, I had a recent student, and, part of our training process is not only there's a pre-interview before every session. We talked about what went well, what things that we need to work on. There's the on-track portion, and then there's a debrief. So your instructor's not with you just in the car, but all of these different things beforehand. And at the last session of the last day, I said, these were the 8 goals that we set. I'm like, you hit every single one of them. And just big high fives and hugs. And, that's what it's about.
My favorite is putting on taking off your previous wristband and putting on your new one and taking that selfie with it.
Absolutely.
I'm so low now.
I cried once when I promoted somebody to the Black Run group, because they had worked so hard. And it was just this emotional challenge that they were able to achieve. And, it's great. And it's great to see people that I instructed as novices in the top run groups now alongside me, passing me as well.
You've always said you've met people who will say, Manny was my first instructor, I remember. And part of my joy, other than, of course, the free lunch, is is seeing the people's improvement. Like Mia said, it's because you are like high-fiving in the car, and I would really get them pumped up, and I would say, see that car in front of us? We're going to pass that car. And you're like, oh, but he's much faster. I'm like, we are going to pass him before the session's over, and that became our target, was we're going to pass this car. And so we kept on pushing the student, and you knew the limit of the student. They didn't know their limits, and so
Right.
you have the confidence. I would always tell people, listen, your instructor's not going to do anything to get themselves hurt. So they know exactly what your car is doing. They can feel it. So you have a lot of trust in your instructor. But when they would pass that car, when they never thought they would have a dream of doing it, it's just a huge boost for their confidence. And you also find out you make a friend, because next time you see him, now there's a new person who didn't really know anybody, at least knows one or two people in the paddock, and that's how they bring you in. And suddenly you're just a regular in the paddock, and because there's a whole social aspect to drivers there too, because you have a lot of downtime as you're waiting for your next session, especially as a student. As an instructor, you're kind of busy running around, but as a student, you're talking about where you're going to go for dinner that night and whatnot. That's I used to have a whole family of driver's ed and club racing people that I never saw these people other than when we would start emailing about where we were going to meet up to start caravanning to come out to the event.
No, we start at telling the newbies that come out, go volunteer at Grid. Check to see if everybody's helmet straps are on. Check to see that their hip hood pins are closed. Check to see that their straps are on. And so you've got this new formed friendship of people volunteering. Get them in early, and they understand that it takes a village to run an event like this. And volunteering is a great step to be brought into that community.
The driving part of HPDE is significant. But even off track, walking around the paddock also is an adventure, because you see people that have full semi-trailers. You see people that are, living in the back of their truck, and all these special tools that they've made. If you're a car geek, the paddock area can entertain you for hours.
And
right?
the keys, hop on in. GT2 RS Club Sport.
Or there's a hot dog. Here, would you like one? We say that HPDE is very structured, very safe, but there are times where something can happen, and I think we should talk about the insurance side of doing HPDE.
Right. So there are several track insurance companies out there. I believe Haggerty's a sponsor of ours. Locked In is a sponsor of ours. There's a handful of others, and you can buy track insurance just for a particular weekend or for the entire season, and you can play around with, do you want full, if anything happened, like if your car got totaled or whatever, full replacement cost along those lines as well. Canada's a little sketchier up there. They don't have the amount of insurance companies that are there, so I know that our northern friends up there are
Do
struggling.
we have the same amount of lawyers as us?
I don't think anybody has the same amount of lawyers as us.
Maybe that's why.
But track insurance, for me, I'm, as Manny will always often say, I'm fairly risk averse. And there's
Try playing blackjack with him. Loses $5, and it's like he lost his house.
But for that couple $100 or
Yeah.
even $1,000, let's say, especially if you're driving a GT3 or car with a high value, to me it's totally worth it, because it's, should something happen, nothing else attached to your insurance policy with your home, your other cars.
Right.
It's completely separate and can be contained. Because the opposite is, if you don't have that, then they may or may not cover it, and then the aftermath of covering a track incident.
Right, and the track insurance sales, it's so easy to deal with. You can do a lot of them just online, and if something happened afterward, it's a pretty easy process afterwards as well. So, one of my cars I have track insurance on, the other one I don't, because I'm willing to risk that.
You're knowing that if something happens to that, you're gonna foot the bill for it.
Right, exactly.
And that's probably your race car.
That's my race car.
Yeah, the race cars, that's what people do.
Right.
But for a car that's, you're driving home, it's maybe you're a special weekend car.
Right. Yeah.
I wouldn't
It's
recommend
very
it.
common.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, something we haven't quite touched on, and I wish we'd done this maybe a little earlier, but for somebody who, you know, the natural progression is autocross to HPDE. I know that some people start with HPDE, but usually it's autocross. And what is it like to go from autocross to a track day? And I want to share my experience just because it was pretty eye-opening. And so autocross, you get, 5 runs maybe, give or take a few, depending on the event or the region. And you'd think, 5 runs, 5 minutes of driving roughly, it must be a very relaxed, sort of day, but it's really not. It's very fast paced because when you're in the car driving, you are going all out, or at least, maybe you're learning the first run. Everything's very fast paced when you're behind the wheel, and you learn a lot, but it's also slow speed, and it's only 5 minutes. You go to a track day, you're getting 15 more minutes runtime on your first track session compared to a whole day at autocross. It's a lot different driving. A track has much wider turns, much faster. But in essence, for me, it gave me a lot more time through each turn to feel out the handling of my car and sort of play around a bit. Whereas in autocross, the turns are often so sharp and it's so tight that you're not going to be throttle steering like you would on a sweeper at VIR or something and learning how your car does that. So for me, the eye-opening experience was really having that much time to mess around with my car on track and really learn how it feels. Then when you go back to autocross, you're probably going to be a better autocrosser. Anyway.
Sometimes you won't.
Sometimes you won't.
So here, let me make sure I put this correctly. And I get what you're saying, like how autocross can be so intense. For
HPDE is super relaxing compared to an autocross, in my opinion.
Well, that's what and I'm not. I am only a signed off solo driver, and I probably have fallen back because I haven't driven that much. To someone that's new to, and you can correct me, to someone that's new to HPDE, yes, it's probably a little bit relaxing because you're in a group where you can have the time to figure things out. But once you actually learn to drive and you're solo, or especially the instructor, they're doing what we do in autocross constantly.
Yes.
They're getting the G-forces. They're doing the extreme stuff for a half an hour. So they are.
But they didn't just go from autocross to track.
No, but
day.
what I'm saying is you can get that same
Yeah.
intensity in HPDE when you're at that level. When
Oh,
you're
definitely.
a novice, yeah, it's good. You're gonna have a little bit more
But
time.
you don't-
Am I right?
I mean,
Yeah.
I can't say I've ever had a novice driver be relaxed on the racetrack.
For me, it was way more relaxing. The one thing that got me was I didn't know the car as well as my instructor did,
Right.
or my driving limits. And when I was talking about the brakes earlier on, he told me to smooth out all of my inputs on one lap. And then on the next lap, going into one of the turns, my pedal hit the floor. And it was because my brake fluid, which I
Oops.
changed that Friday before the track day, I just boiled my brake fluid, I guess.
What car was this?
944 S2 with 4-piston Brembos.
That's not.
Yeah.
Have
It was-
air-
I was
it
going to say
air in the
there's
system?
something else with that.
No, it was Ate Super Blue, and I had a shop do it. So
I do see what Damon's saying
Yeah.
because autocross is
super
like it's
fast,
everything. You do
track
have
day, you have time
straights.
to breathe. Exactly, that's what I mean.
Yeah, you've got straights where you can, rotate your shoulders
But
a little
exactly.
bit.
It's
and-
1 minute for
Yeah.
autocross.
Right.
And I used to tell people I will break into a sweat in 1 minute doing autocross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've done 30-minute sessions on the track and no sweat at all.
Yeah.
But then again, if you find someone to run with,
Yeah.
at least for me, nothing worse for me was than an open track.
Yeah.
Because
you get
I
bored.
just
Yeah.
slow down.
Yeah.
But if I had someone I was chasing
A
or someone was
rabbit.
chasing
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
That's intense.
I would come out soaked because I
Yep.
was so intense.
Yeah,
And I've
yeah.
had people come up to me say, I've never broke out into a sweat in the track until you were trying to pass me. And I've never looked in the mirror so much. And he was driving a much faster car, and he had never had anyone challenge him. And he was like rejuvenated. He said, I thought I was getting bored of driver's ed. I found out I got to find people I got to run with. Line up
Right,
next
yeah.
to him on the track.
Good point.
And a lot of people do that is they'll line up together with somebody because they know that person's going to push them to drive faster. And it depends.
Right.
Some people love an open track and say, I would love to have an empty track just to do laps and laps For
I
me
like-
personally,
I like empty
that
tracks.
bores me.
Yeah, not me. I definitely want to dice it up with somebody.
Yeah, I want to.
Yeah, I like playing with people out on the
I haven't
track.
driven
It's
with
fun.
The one thing
people
that
on track,
autocross
but-
helped me out, I noticed right away, was learning a track.
Oh.
I found that I could learn
Yeah.
a track so much quicker than my friends who didn't autocross, because you got to learn a course so quick that you learn to look for certain clues, if you will, of tracks, how they're put together and the turns and whatnot. So I would pick up a track really quick in a couple laps, and not be at 100%, but surely about 80%, and then you fine tune. But what me and I were talking about earlier was, nowadays there's so much data acquisition available.
Right.
Back then, you didn't know whether or not that turn that you decided the early apex that really helped or not. And in the pad, it would always be saying, "Oh, take it like this," or "Don't take it in this gear," and so on and so forth. And you really had nothing to, because no one was timing laps. There wasn't anything around unless someone was sitting in the stands timing your laps. You had to guess by the seat of your pants. I think it felt faster. But nowadays, it doesn't lie.
Right, and did we talk about Porsche Track Precision?
I don't think
the
so.
app yet?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so Porsche has an app that's called Porsche Track Precision. And a lot of the newer cars, like the GT3 RS, for example, you download the app, you connect it via Bluetooth to the car, and you can record, video record if you have the right suction and tether and stuff. Or it just monitors your braking, your threshold, your throttle, your lap times, and it graphs all of the mechanics of the car when you're going around the track. So, and, even 5 years ago, you had to buy an AIM system or a
Right.
data acquisition system. Now you can just use your car that talks to your cell phone. It's crazy. It's great. I use it in one of my cars, and it's fun. You can see all
I wish
the
I
data
had
there.
that, because now I have to go and figure out all the apps to use with my third-party GPS. I put on a suction and all that.
Right.
Yeah, it was telling me it's the bad part about it is you can't lie like you used to about where you broke. You used to break at. I remember when data acquisition first came out. We were all looking at it was like a map of VIR, and I remember saying, "What's this one little black dot? What does that mean?" And he said, "I had someone on full throttle." And I'm like, the entire track, that's the only place. And he was driving a cup car. And he's like, "Will you try to drive a cup car?"
Full
Because you can't go full throttle many places. But it did teach you. It gave you like a theoretical perfect lap.
Right, like golfing.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I
Exactly.
guess I don't know. I'm saying it's exactly. I don't play golf.
Well, they said, golfing, when you put your score in, it said if you did as best as you did on all of these, this would be your score. The Porsche Track Precision will do that as well. And you can just tap on 2 different laps to compare your laps and see, if you were too early in the brakes or you weren't on the throttle fast enough coming out of a corner. And so you can, if you're able to read that data, which is pretty easy, frankly, anybody can do it, you can help yourself get around the track faster.
But I would imagine it's still nice to have the instructor.
At
I used to tell people,
100%.
say, I went to bed and I could hear your voice in my head.
Yeah.
Because it was such a, because
Break.
Go, go, go.
Well, that's the thing. You have,
Go, go,
you
go,
have
go, go, go.
communicators.
That's me. Yeah.
And that's the key. So when you
Yeah.
have communicators,
Yeah, here we go.
yeah, there you go. You're talking very calmly, even though it's very loud. If you don't have these, then yeah, you're screaming,
Right.
and things can misinterpret it. But you're talking very calmly, and I would, on purpose, be very calmly speaking, so it would make the student calm. It was never a panic or situation. But I guess that's what he said. I could hear your voice, but you would find yourself like throttling back on coaching them as they got better and better, and maybe a few turns you would say, "All right, that one you took a little early,
Right.
so I'll remind you before you hit that next turn not to take it early." But yeah, it's so in the schools that don't have that, where the instructors are in a separate car with the walkie-talkie,
Lead follow.
it seems like that's to me that would be missing something, having the student and instructor relationship.
That relationship is a big piece of the happiness at the end of the weekend. It
Yeah,
really
big
is.
plus for PCA. Hopefully they don't go away from that.
And I hope not, because I don't lose my job, my very high-paying job.
Speaking of which, quickly, how did you end up as? Are you the second ever driver's ed chair for national?
Fourth, I
Fourth,
think.
really? So it
Yeah,
was
there
Pete
was
Tremper, who was?
Pete, Alex Bell,
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
John
yeah.
Kresek,
That's
and
right.
then
yeah.
me.
Yep.
Okay, that's.
How did I end up? That's a really good
I used to always say
question.
it's a series of not being able to say no, but I don't know for you.
I know I was really looking forward to my year as past president of Potomac after COVID.
When you're a superstar in PCA
Oh, look who's
notices.
talking.
Absolutely.
When you do
Look
a good
who's
job,
talking.
that's your punishment is that they promote you.
What
to
else can you do? Give this a try for us. So, let's see. Anything else? Words of wisdom on DE before we kind of get into sort of the administrative stuff that we cover.
It's not a competition.
It's not a competition. It isn't, and
Main
there's
thing to
but yet
remember.
there is a lot to learn. And if you haven't tried it, you owe yourself to try it. Even go to a DE as a and just walk
Watch.
around in the paddock and see what people are doing. More often than not, people that do it just get hooked.
And there's a lot of resources online, right?
Tons of resources.
In the PCA.org,
PCA.org.
under driver's ed, where Robert's been scrolling, but
Right.
a lot of. Then you'd stroll down into the regions, kind of like Potomac, has a wealth of information on their website as well.
Yeah, there's some great information out there, no doubt. I always like to end with everything that you learn on the racetrack will make you a better, safer driver on the road. And those skills have saved my husband and me. And if you ask in a room full of HPDE drivers, 99% of them will say, "Saved me from an accident.
Absolutely.
Saved me from this. Saved me from that." I have a gazillion stories to tell.
Now, this didn't apply to Manny, but it applied to me. I think HPD made me a calmer driver on the road because I knew whatever I was going to do was not going to be anything near what I do on HPDE. So why even try to drive
Miss
like
Daisy, meet Boo.
I was gonna say, I think the road's scary. 495 going around the Beltway is a lot scarier than the racetrack.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, we used to say that, right? That we used
Yeah.
to say going and coming back from the track was more dangerous than what we did on the track.
Yeah, there you go.
Because everyone on the track was going in the same direction. No one was on their cell phone. It was very focused, and plus you had people in the corner station nicely looking out for you.
And their rolls.
Yeah.
Exactly. That the drive to the racetrack was scary.
Robert, let's go over to our newsletters. If you haven't signed up for eBreak News, Mart Fresh News, Performance News, do so by heading over to pca.org. Damon, anything else for you, videos that you want to touch upon?
You know, looking out to the middle of May is kind of tough, but you'll have seen some road videos that we filmed at Road Scholars, a TPC racing technical deep dive with Mike Levitis of the 718 GT4 RS and GT4 RS Club Sport. And I'm sure I'm forgetting some other things. Axel Catton was at a collection in Europe that he filmed a nice video for. I should be getting those files pretty soon, and that video will probably be up by middle of May.
All right. So instead of trying to depend on us to tell you when to watch these videos, you can simply subscribe to our
Subscribe,
YouTube
turn on
channel.
For the
notifications.
love of God, subscribe so we can hit 100,000.
Yeah.
I just watched
How
one
close
of my.
are we? Close?
We're going to bring a puppy in here with a gun.
Manny,
Make a threat.
We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
no.
That would be interesting.
I can't wait till the UPS driver drops off that flat silver plaque
Yeah.
with the mirror. I can see it. It's so close, so close.
Yes.
So each and every one of
I got
you,
a feeling
please
it's going to be
subscribe.
Lucy and Charlie Brown. Just when we're at 99, YouTube's going to say
150.
It's 200 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Wah, 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 wah. The raffle is open, so if you'd like to win a 2024 718 Boxster GTS or Cayman GTS, plus $25,000 cash, plus a precision Porsche track driving experience, or second grand prize, a 2024 Macan EV, just sign up, $50 in entry. Great odds, and we'd love to surprise you with your win. Also want to remind you that August 16th, we will have Works Reunion Monterey. Registration opens May 22nd. PCA Sim Racing. Mia, you talked a little bit about earlier, if you're getting ready to head to the track and want to learn the lines, know where to go, as Manny didn't know where to go. But today's drivers, you can do a lot of that in PCA Sim Racing. PCASimRacing.com. Treffin at Sea heading to Alaska. We're still at around 820 or so. Cruising to Alaska, I just spoke to Nathan Mers. We're actually going to have a little welcome party before we get on the boat. So if you're coming to Alaska, plan to go a day early, and we can visit Nathan
Did
Mertz.
Nathan tell his wife that 850 people are coming to the house?
Yes.
Probably
yes,
the shop,
Susie
right?
knows. Going to the shop.
Yeah.
And so that should be pretty cool. We have a website, PCA Web Store, Insider merch, Podcast Insider tees, mugs, water bottles. If you're interested in any of that, head over to the PCA Web Store. If you'd like to get a Insider podcast, just send us an email at podcast@pca.org.
Can I plug the DE web store?
Absolutely.
We've got a DE web store out there that you can get any kind of DE related. I think it's something like this logo here. And you can get shirts and bags just like you can with the PCA Insider. And there's a special instructor web store if you're a PCA National instructor.
Perfect plug. All right. Anything else?
Well, I wanted to bring up Robert. If you had that picture of my tire, that the never-ending saga of where a few
pothole.
episodes ago I talked about how I hit a pothole. So I had my summer tires really all season, but I bent the wheel evidently last season on the summer wheel. So I bring the new wheel I got off eBay, which was straight, and they start balancing, and they're like, it won't balance. And they start looking at the tire, and they're like, oh, this is really worn. I said, that's strange, because you can see on the tread how much tread there is.
Wow.
And they feel it, and it broke the cord inside when I hit whatever I hit that bent the BMW wheel. And so the moral of the story is taking us back to driver's ed, and my first chief instructor, Bob Williams. Bob used to always say, if you think something's wrong with your car, come into the pits. Don't stay out there waiting for something to break. And this time I felt the vibration, so I called Gennady and I said, hey, can I come by tomorrow morning, with today? And I said to have you swap the wheels, because I can feel this vibration starting at 60 up to around 75. And he said, sure. So luckily I found out that it was more than just the bent wheel. It was the tire that was probably about ready to let go with
Cord
the
in the
belt.
tire. Wow.
Well, the belt was broken inside, so there was actually like a lump forming on the one. That's what the vibration was. So
Listen to your cars,
Listen
fellas.
to your cars.
that,
Absolutely.
and so we're leaving for Arizona tomorrow to film a video, and we're going to keep things under wraps until this video comes out, because it's a very special collection that I'm pretty sure no one has seen. And things that go into doing a 35-car collection of very rare Porsches.
Manny's been playing with Post-it notes.
This was me last night at around 11:30 on my kitchen table with two very curious cats climbing all over of every car model. I was going to use Matchbox cars, but I found that the Post-its was a lot easier. Trying to figure out how we're going to lay these cars out in the hangar so it look aesthetically pretty, and logistically we're able to get all these cars in the video and interviews and whatnot. So hopefully it goes. Planning goes very well, and we pulled
I
this.
thought this was the PCA raffle.
That's exactly how we organize it, Mia. About 30,000 of these.
And this is
Handwritten.
This is just one of the many things that we've got to prepare for when we go. But you will enjoy what comes out
I
of
think
this.
it's going to be we have some other collections that maybe we'll call that the series, the collections or secret collections, collections that you probably have not. I searched, and and I don't believe this gentleman's ever let
So exciting.
anyone film this collection. So there's some great stories behind these very unique blue chip cars.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. If you aren't currently a PCA member and own a Porsche, grab that VIN, head over to PCA.org and set yourself up with a PCA membership. If you're looking for that special Porsche, we have the test drive program. Again, just head over to PCA.org and you can sign up and unlock tons of resources to help you find your special Porsche. Remember to follow our podcast Instagram page, behind the scenes photos, videos, Porsche Club Insider, all one word. Again, if you'd like to send us a message, you can send it to podcast@pca.org. Otherwise, we'll read your comments on the on YouTube, and we'll comment, and I think we're going to maybe collect some of our more favorite fun ones. People did say that they would love to hear the more interesting comments about us.
Oh, boy.
So that could be a fun upcoming episode. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll catch you down the road.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Mia.